GMNA uses artificial intelligence for generated speech, visuals, and production. AI-generated content may contain errors. Please verify important information before making decisions or taking action. Live from the GMNA News Center, this is the Lunch Break News Hour.
Good afternoon, Toronto. I'm Jordan Parker. Health officials have warned of measles exposure at Pearson Airport. We're seeing minor highway lane delays and TTC adjustments as World Cup service changes roll out. Transit riders are gathering at a Scarborough summit ahead of the municipal election. Nathan, what do you make of that?
The Toronto Symphony Orchestra presents a Bond Night concert at Allen Gardens this Saturday, showcasing iconic James Bond film scores performed by a 70-musician ensemble.
Doors open at 6:30 p.m. with the program starting promptly at 7, and tickets range from $25 to $50, available online and at the venue.
The concert will feature a live orchestra rendition of Goldfinger, a surprise appearance by vocalist Sarah McLachlan for Skyfall, and a fireworks finale.
Family-friendly seating, complimentary refreshments, and a charitable donation component supporting local music education are included, making it a perfect evening outing. Lots to get to, let's begin. The City Council just approved a new transit plan that could cut commute times by 15 minutes, reshaping how Torontonians get to work.
Peel public health officials have issued an exposure alert after a confirmed measles case was identified among passengers at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The case involves travelers on Ethiopian Airlines Flight 552 arriving from Addis Ababa and on Air Canada Flight 410 bound for Montreal. Both flights arrived at Pearson on last Saturday, June 13th. Health authorities say measles spreads easily through respiratory droplets and can linger in the air, prompting the alert to prevent further transmission. Anyone who was in the terminal during the arrival window and who has not been vaccinated or lacks immunity is urged to contact Peel Public Health for guidance. The agency will monitor the situation and advise on any additional steps needed to protect the public. The advisory applies to anyone who passed through the domestic arrivals area between 200 and 300 hours on that day.
Police say a drone operator was charged after officers intercepted an unauthorized aircraft near the FIFA World Cup fan zone on June 21st at about 8:15 p.m. A police helicopter and ground units forced the drone to land and identified its pilot. The Toronto Police Service filed a charge for breaching the strict no-fly regulations that surround stadiums, fan zones, and other large gatherings during the tournament. Since the World Cup opened in Toronto, officers have seized more than a dozen drones that entered prohibited airspace. The charge carries a fine and possible seizure of equipment, and the operator will appear before a municipal court later this month. Police said the action underscores the city's commitment to keep the skies clear as thousands of fans gather for upcoming matches.
Ford Motor Company and Unifor began collective bargaining talks in Toronto today, marking the first round of negotiations with the three Detroit-based automakers as their current agreements near expiry. The discussions involve roughly 19,000 Canadian auto workers whose contracts run out in September. The existing deals, signed 3 years ago, are set to be replaced with updated terms. Both sides said they will focus on wages, benefits, and job security as they seek a new framework before the September deadline. Unifor will next sit down with the other two manufacturers in the coming weeks, aiming to secure consistent standards across the sector. Ford and the union indicated they intend to keep production uninterrupted while talks proceed, underscoring the importance of a timely resolution for the workforce and supply chain throughout the province.
Kilmer Sports Ventures, the investment arm of Toronto mogul Larry Tannenbaum, announced today a fresh injection of capital into the Professional Women's Hockey League. The move bolsters the league, North America's premier women's hockey circuit, and signals Tannenbaum's ongoing commitment to growing women's sport. Tannenbaum, whose portfolio already includes stakes in the Maple Leafs and the Raptors, said the partnership will help the PWHL expand its reach and enhance player development across the continent. League officials welcomed the backing, noting it will accelerate plans for new market teams and improve facilities for athletes. The investment arrives as the PWHL prepares for its upcoming season, aiming to draw larger crowds and greater media attention. Tannenbaum's track record of backing high-profile sports ventures adds credibility to the league's long-term growth strategy future.
Advocates for community land trusts and other nonprofit housing groups are pressing the city to secure funding for a new municipal program before the October municipal election. The proposal would give the City of Toronto authority to allocate capital that enables trusts to purchase rental buildings flagged as vulnerable to gentrification, keeping them affordable for and moderate-income households. Proponents say rapid neighborhood change has already displaced dozens of renters, and a dedicated financing stream could lock in preservation tools before the next council term. City officials have indicated they will review the plan as part of their election platform, but no budget commitment has been announced. If approved, the scheme would represent one of the first city-wide efforts to use public money to bolster community-owned housing and directly counter rising market pressures.
Later we'll break down Ontario's new tenant rule requiring 50% of claimed arrears, and what it means for renters. We will be right back.
Watch the local sunset tonight at 6 p.m. for all your local Montreal news.
Welcome back, folks. Let's dive into what matters as we head out. First up, Nathan Cole with the local stories you need to hear.
Ontario's government has moved to keep Premier Doug Ford's daily agenda off the public record. Effective June 22nd, the province amended its Freedom of Information legislation so that ministers and their offices are no longer subject to access requests. The change means the Premier's schedule, which was previously posted online for journalists and citizens, will no longer be released. Officials say the revision streamlines internal operations, while critics argue it reduces transparency for Ontarians who track government activity. For Torontonians who follow the Premier's appearances to gauge policy direction, the loss of a regularly updated calendar could make it harder to anticipate decisions that affect transit, housing, and health services. The amendment marks the latest step in a broader overhaul of the province's access to information framework. The change follows a recent revision that pulled ministers out of the Freedom of Information scope.
Transit riders and community leaders gathered at the Scarborough Civic Centre on Sunday, June 21st for a summit for better transit. Organizers said the event aimed to collect direct input from daily commuters ahead of the October municipal election, where public transit is expected to dominate the conversation. Attendees voiced concerns about service frequency, route coverage, and fare affordability, highlighting how these issues affect commuting families and workers across the city. Speakers included representatives from the TTC Riders Association and local neighborhood groups, each urging candidates to prioritize reliable service. The summit featured interactive stations where participants mapped problem routes and drafted priority recommendations to share with prospective council candidates. Officials noted the feedback will be compiled into a report to inform the upcoming campaign, giving Toronto residents a clearer voice on the transit promises they'll hear at the polls.
Tenants across the province will now have to fork out half of the rent arrears a landlord alleges before they can raise any other complaints at a landlord and tenant board hearing. The rule, which takes effect on June 21st, applies to all cases where a landlord claims the tenant owes back rent. Under the new procedure, the tenant must pay 50% of the claimed amount in order to be permitted to discuss issues such as maintenance problems, lease violations, or illegal entry during the same hearing. The board says the change is meant to streamline hearings and ensure that financial disputes are addressed first. Critics argue the requirement could deter low-income renters from voicing legitimate concerns, while supporters contend it discourages frivolous claims. The adjustment will affect both residential and commercial tenancies throughout Ontario.
Fans from Germany and the Ivory Coast filled the streets of Toronto on Saturday, June 20th, turning the city into a vibrant pre-match festival. Thousands of supporters marched along key thoroughfares, waving black, red, and gold flags alongside orange, yellow, and green banners and chanting in unison. Police coordinated with community organizers to temporarily close several blocks and manage the flow, keeping the crowds safe. The lively procession was organized to rally cheers for the national teams ahead of their World Cup clash, a highlight of the tournament's schedule in the host city. Spectators lined the routes, sharing food, music, and friendly banter, creating a bustling atmosphere that spilled into nearby cafes and shops. With the match set later that day, the celebration gave locals a front-row view of the international excitement without leaving their neighborhoods.
Toronto Public Health issued a public warning on Friday, June 19th, after documenting a noticeable rise in overdose incidents across downtown neighborhoods. Officials said the number of emergency calls linked to drug-related emergencies has climbed sharply in recent weeks, prompting the agency to alert residents and service providers. The advisory stresses that the surge is concentrated in the city's central core, where shelters, transit hubs, and nightlife venues intersect, increasing the likelihood of accidental exposure. Health officials urged anyone witnessing an overdose to call emergency services immediately and offered information on nearby naloxone distribution sites. The warning also reminded the public that bystander assistance can be life-saving and that resources are available without charge. Toronto Public Health pledged to continue monitoring trends and to work with community partners to mitigate further spikes.
Now let's get a quick look at your afternoon forecast with our weather team.
Midday looks lively as clouds drift, and a gentle breeze stirs the city's skyline over the harbor this lovely June. On this day, Toronto's thermometer once surged to 35.8 degrees Celsius back in 2022, a blistering peak that rode the tail of an unprecedented heat wave across the province. Just a year earlier, an unexpected early summer chill dropped the mercury to 11.1 degrees, the coldest June reading on record, and a reminder that the city can surprise. By contrast, climate normals hover around 22 degrees high and 13 low for late June, so both extremes stand out dramatically against the usual spring-summer swing. Right now the city sits under a thick overcast with the temperature lingering at 12 degrees, humidity pushing 95% and a gentle southerly breeze at 22 kilometers per hour. By noon we'll see a brief splash of light rain as the mercury climbs to 15 degrees, keeping things fresh. The afternoon stays steady at 15, clouds holding firm and the wind remaining mild. As we move toward evening, the sky clears, temperatures rise to 17, and the sunset will paint the horizon around 9:02 p.m. The UV index holds at 6. And with no active alerts, it's a comfortable day to enjoy a walk or a coffee break. Looking ahead, Tuesday greets us with a bright sky and a high of 20 degrees while lows dip to 11, a gentle start to the week. Wednesday turns a bit cloudier, reaching 23 at its peak and 15 at night, perfect for a leisurely stroll under soft overcast. Thursday brings a chance of showers, 50% likely, with temperatures holding at 21 to 15, keep an umbrella handy just in case. Friday brightens again, sunshine returning and a warm high of 25 paired with a mild 15-degree low, ideal for outdoor plans. Saturday stays mostly clear, high 23 and low 15 with only a small 20% chance of rain, wrapping up a pleasant stretch of early summer weather.
Up next, traffic on those highway lanes, a preview of Blue Jays versus Astros, plus Pret A Manger's airport expansion. We will be right back.
Watch the local sunset tonight at 6 p.m. for all your local Montreal news.
Highway 401 westbound has a moderate lane closure between Dixon Road and Carlingview Drive, adding minutes for travelers from Etobicoke to Mississauga. Stay in the left lane to bypass the work zone, but expect slower traffic at the interchange. Highway 401 eastbound express is closed between Kipling Avenue and Jane Street, while the main lanes stay clear. Highway 407 northbound express is down between Browns Line and Finch Avenue, and the southbound express lane is shut near Dixon Road, each causing queues. Further north, Highway 404 northbound between York Mills Road and Woodbine Avenue has a moderate closure, adding a few minutes for Markham commuters. All other routes, including the Gardiner and Don Valley, are moving freely. On transit, TTC's World Cup adjustments add express trains on Line 2 and modify bus routes near Stadium District. Long Branch Loop construction continues, so streetcars may run stop later than usual.
Toronto Blue Jays face Houston Astros at the Rogers Center today, a midday showdown that could tighten the playoff race, with fireworks on the roof for a perfect lunch break escape. Grab a seat in the upper deck for the best view of the skyline. Cirque du Soleil's Lucia returns to the Royal Alexandra Theatre now, weaving Indigenous myths into a uniquely Canadian spectacle you won't see elsewhere. Music fans head to the Coca-Cola Coliseum where Young the Giant launches their Victory Garden tour with Cold War kids, delivering fresh tracks and a rumored surprise guest. Tickets are still on sale, so you can catch the surprise guest that's rumored to join the stage. Tomorrow, the FIFA Fan Festival spreads across Fort York and the Bentway, turning the city into a global soccer village with live matches, interactive zones, and street food from every continent. And now here's Marcus with sports.
Here's the latest on Toronto's baseball and hockey action as the season unfolds. Toronto's Blue Jays have postponed the game that was set to feature Shane Bieber's first appearance of the season, pushing his debut back to an undetermined later date, according to Sportsnet. The delay stems from a rain-related postponement, leaving the rotation schedule in flux. Blue Jays prospect JoJo Parker continued his surge on Sunday, belting a 3-run home run that marked his third long ball in the past 4 games, Sportsnet reported. The blast underscores his hot streak and adds another offensive spark for Toronto's farm system. The Toronto Marlies clinched the AHL Calder Cup on Friday, edging the Chicago Wolves 4-3 after Vinny Lettieri's second-period power play goal proved decisive, CBC Sports NHL noted. The victory came in Game 5 of the best-of-7 series, delivering the championship to the city.
Today's Chamber Spotlight shines on Pret A Manger, now a staple on King Street West in the Financial District. The British-style cafe serves freshly made sandwiches, salads, and coffee, catering to commuters who need quick, quality fuel. After opening its second Toronto shop in January 2026, Pret is taking off literally by adding locations at several Canadian airports, beginning with Vancouver International Airport this summer. The expansion means more travelers will experience the brand's commitment to sustainable sourcing and transparent ingredients, while the downtown outpost continues to draw office workers and neighborhood residents into a lively, community-focused space. It matters to Toronto because every new Pret location puts a little of our city's hustle and hospitality on the map. And later, we'll celebrate Larry Tannenbaum's Kilmer Sports Ventures Fund's Women's Hockey League, a win for the game.
Coming up tonight at 6, the local sunset. Your neighborhood, your city, your news. From City Hall decisions to the stories happening right on your street, we cover what matters most to Montrealers. Join us tonight at 6 p.m. on GMna for the local Sunset, Montreal's evening newscast.
Jordan Parker, a high-energy jazz fusion set from rising duo Domi and J.D. Beck, is set to light up the Danforth Music Hall on June 22, promising packed crowds and a vibrant soundtrack for the Toronto Jazz Festival. The crowd is buzzing. Carl Dumont is there. Carl Dumont.
Thanks, Jordan Parker. I'm standing in the dim glow of the Danforth Music Hall, the brick facade pulsing with neon, the scent of fresh coffee and anticipation hanging in the air. Inside, the historic wooden stage is framed by vintage curtains, and rows of polished aluminum seats are filling fast with a mix of longtime jazz lovers and curious newcomers. The crowd murmurs, drinks clink, and the house lights dim as the clock ticks toward 8 o'clock p.m. on the stage. The rising duo Domi and J.D. Beck, saxophone and keyboards, are tuning their instruments, their chemistry already electric. The opening notes of their fusion set burst through the hall, a swirl of improvisation that feels both classic and futuristic, drawing cheers that ripple through the Riverdale neighborhood. This performance not only caps the Toronto Jazz Festival's headline night, it showcases how fresh talent can revitalize a beloved community tradition. Carl Dumont, virtually at Danforth Music Hall.
On a Tuesday morning on Queen Street West, steps from the Union Station clock tower, I watched commuters clutch steaming paper cups as the city hummed with the promise of a new day. A group of senior engineers from Alto Consulting gathered around a whiteboard sketching routes that could ripple across the province. Their focus. A request from Transportation Minister Stephen McKinnon to evaluate a high-speed rail stop in historic Kingston, a town on the banks of the St. Lawrence and the pulse of its downtown. What makes this more than a policy memo is the story of a Kingston teacher, Maria Alvarez, who rides a 2-hour bus each week to bring her students to a science fair in Toronto. She told the team that a fast, direct train could turn a day-long trek into a half-day journey, giving her kids more time for projects and family. That simple wish sparked a ripple of excitement across the room, turning technical diagrams into a shared vision of connection. When a province invests in bridges, it's not just steel and track. It's the moments that families like Maria's will finally have more time together.
In the heart of the Distillery District, beneath the brick arches that echo the city's industrial past, the Kemla brothers set up a modest pop-up shop on a Saturday afternoon. Brothers Marco and Louis, lifelong collectors of vintage soccer apparel, spread out 200 jerseys across reclaimed wooden tables, each shirt a faded banner of a different era. The scent of fresh espresso from a nearby cafe mingled with the soft rustle of cotton as a curious 8-year-old tugged at a bright red Manchester United jersey, eyes wide with wonder. An elderly fan, clutching a ticket stub from a 1976 World Cup match, lingered by a navy blue Canada shirt, murmuring stories of a cold night in Mexico City. The brothers smiled as strangers exchanged memories, strangers becoming teammates for a moment. By the time the sun slipped behind the loft-style windows, the pop-up had turned a simple display into a living archive of shared passion. It's moments like these that remind us how a love for the game can stitch a community together.
Thank you, Toronto, for spending your lunch break with us. Today's highlight was Larry Tannenbaum's Kilmer Sports Ventures stepping up to fund the Women's Hockey League, a bright boost for our city's athletes. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories that matter. Until then, stay safe and enjoy your day.